I'm going to be real, I never found Bruno Mars' early albums to be all that great. I also don't think they've aged well over the years. He had the vocals and passion and he knew how to write a catchy melody, don't get me wrong, but if there was anything I found more uninteresting than the bland instrumentals he would hop on during this old era of his, it was that the lyrics were so overly dramatic and cheesy that they just came off as a turn-off for me. From catching a grenade for someone to pretty much everything about Count on Me, which sounds like someone's attempt at making a song from scratch using a royalty-free YouTube ukulele instrumental, I can't recall a single early 2010s Bruno Mars hit that I still listen to today other than When I Was Your Man. I guess the messages and sentiments behind those songs are somewhat endearing and cute even if they're corny, but as a whole, I found his older music to be overrated and difficult to take seriously. It was really when Uptown Funk dropped that I felt that was the start of an era where I actually appreciated the music Bruno was making and started taking him more seriously than I had before. 24K Magic features some of the greatest songs of his solo career, such as That's What I Like. That pop is still as amazing today as it was when it first came out, and that 70s soul throwback sound that Bruno was creating alongside Anderson .Paak when they teamed up to drop an album under the Silk Sonic name was a pretty amazing effort, with the biggest hits such as Leave the Door Open being so grand and stunning that I truly believe they deserve all the rewards and success they received for that album. This soul sound is something that Bruno is tapping into on his new album here. Like the Silk Sonic album, this is also a collection of upbeat, dancey soul jams. However, Bruno isn't really pushing this sound in any interesting directions. The biggest differences between those two records sonically is that An Evening with Silk Sonic was a lot funkier, whereas The Romantic swaps out the funk for more of a pop appeal. On paper, that sounds fine, but the music on this album just comes across as a more generic, familiar version of what we've already heard Bruno do during those Silk Sonic sessions. While there are some soaring vocal performances, big horns, and even some bad instrumentation in the mix, I think The Romantic is a bit more stripped back instrumentally compared to the Silk Sonic album, and is also less grand in presentation. The lyrics on this album are also a lot less playful and humorous than they were on the Silk Sonic record. While both still explore topics about love, The Romantic takes a more dramatic and raw approach. As far as differences go, these are the most notable ones that come to mind. Overall, The Romantic doesn't really deliver a fresh or new sound for him. It's frustratingly unadventurous to say the least. I know I've been going on comparing the two albums, but since these are the most noticeable differences I can find, and the fact that I keep getting constant deja vu from this new Bruno Mars album because he hasn't really taken his sound to fresh heights, I just can't help myself. The music here just sounds like worse versions of what he's already done before. It's not only the Silk Sonic material that I'm getting reminded of, the song Nothing Left, even if it's one of the better tracks here, has a melody that feels distractingly similar to the one on When I Was Your Man. I refuse to believe I'm the only one who thinks that. I admit the song does still differ overall from that old Bruno classic due to the instrumentation behind it having more layers. When I Was Your Man is simply a piano ballad, but when one of the better songs on an album just sounds like a rehash of one of your previous hits, it's a sign of creative bankruptcy, especially when there aren't even many tracks on this album. I suppose there are some Latin influences on the album which is new, but they aren't explored very deeply, and even the moments that lean most into the Latin sound aren't all that captivating. Specifically on Risk It All, I don't think the way he's belting out his vocals in such a soaring manner complements the vibe that the Latin elements of the production bring. His vocals on their own are of course good, he's a very talented singer obviously, but on here they're set against production that doesn't suit the way he's using his voice. They feel like polar opposites, and I feel that if he had dialed back how high he sang on the track, it would have come across much cleaner and more effective. Risk It All is also reminiscent of Bruno's early stuff like Grenade, not sonically but lyrically, because of how cheesy and overdramatic the writing on this song is. From running through a fire for someone to being willing to climb a mountain for them. I know I'm taking it more seriously than I should, but this is the type of songwriting I'd expect from an amateur who has just properly started their musical career, not someone who's been in the game for over a decade at this point. These lyrics are so over the top that they make the lyrics to Grenade sound emotionally grounded, and do I even need to get started on how cheesy and painfully dramatic the lyrics to God Gods was showing you off are? The title alone made me die inside a little. You know whoever said gods don't have favorites never seen you before? I mean, come on, if someone popped up in your DMs and said these words, you'd cringe. I don't think Bruno Mars should get a pass just because he's Bruno Mars. I know these songs are meant to be somewhat playful, but they're just way too over the top for me and still serve as examples of cliche and bland romantic songwriting. The tracks here just feel very by the numbers for the pop soul genre. They come across as the most meat and potatoes approach to the sound. There wasn't really a song I would say I love. My favorite track on this album is probably the single I Just Might, but that's only because the other surrounding tracks are so mid. When I first heard it as a single, I thought it was just okay, and I still do, but when it's set among these less interesting songs, it might as well be a highlight. The production on 24K Magic and An Evening with Silk Sonic was great, but on this album, it just feels standard and run-of-the-mill. Bruno was really nailing it with the music he created on his 2 previous albums, but this album just feels like a step down from nearly all of the post-2014 material he's released. To describe what the romantic really is as a whole, it's as if Bruno took the amazing 70s throwback sound he was exploring on the Silk Sonic project, made it as bland as possible, sprinkled in some pop cliches, and then applied the cheesy songwriting style from his debut album to this new context. He's not really giving us anything new. The sound he is exploring on this album are already familiar for Bruno Mars. He's done them before. Listen, the talent is there, but the creativity and ambition aren't. Please like and subscribe.